The Lamy Dialog 3 is a retractable fountain pen first introduced in 2012 by legendary industrial designer Franco Clivo. It has a very minimalist design and is somewhat pill-shaped. The bottom finial is rounded, and then we have pin striping that runs the length of the barrel. At the bottom of the pin striping, we have Lamy nicely painted on top. And there's nothing on the back. The barrel is broken up into two pieces, and the pinstripes line up nicely when the nib is fully retracted. And then we have a clip, which is a spring-loaded metal clip that's springy and very functional. Though it's important to note, there is no ball at the bottom, so this will clasp onto fabrics but won't go over fabrics. Working our way up on the pen, we then reach the top finial, which you can see is a slight cutout in the pill-shaped design. And the top finial has a rubber frame that says Germany, and then we have a metal dome that seals off the nib. Giving the back barrel a twist in the clockwise direction lowers that cap and allows the nib to extend out. And here we have a nice 14 karat gold nib. It has the typical Lamy style, which means that it is swappable with all of their other products, with the exception of the Lamy Ion and the Lamy 2000. This one I have in extra fine, but it's available in many other grinds. This twist function not only extends and retracts the nib and moves that cap up and down, but it also has an effect on the clip. We can see in the fully closed position, the clip stands quite proud of the barrel and is very easy to actuate. However, if I give the back barrel a twist, the clip will actually shift down to become more flush with the front barrel, and it will also lock in place. It's quite subtle to see. I'll try to do it one more time here for the camera. And in that bottom position, I can no longer actuate the clip, which is good. It'll help prevent you from getting pinched while you're writing. In the hand, the pen is large and pretty wide. The weight is favored towards the nib, which makes it very comfortable for quick note-taking, but I do find it to be not the most comfortable or ergonomic pen for long writing sessions. In terms of size comparisons, here's your Lamy Dialog 3, a typical Pilot G2 rollerball pen, and your standard Sharpie. Before we get into the disassembly of the Lamy Dialog 3, I wanted to take a moment here to compare it with another retractable fountain pen. This is the Pilot Vanishing Point in all matte black. When the nibs are fully retracted, we see that the Vanishing Point is a little bit longer than the Dialog 3, and the Vanishing Point is also a bit thinner in general than the Lamy Dialog 3. The Vanishing Point uses a knocking mechanism in the back to extend and retract the nib, whereas the Lamy uses the twist mechanism to extend and retract the nib. The clip on the Vanishing Point is a bent metal clip that has a little bit of a pinch section towards the top, and that's to help with ergonomics and aid with positioning your fingers in the proper writing position. The Dialog, on the other hand, has a very straight, consistent shaped clip that's a spring-loaded clip, but doesn't do anything for ergonomics besides extend and retract as you twist the back barrel. Let's take a look at these pens with their nibs extended. For the Pilot Vanishing Point, all you do is push on the back and the nib comes out. For the Dialog, we have to lift it up and give it a twist. With the nibs extended, we can now see the Vanishing Point is significantly shorter than the Lamy Dialog 3. The Lamy Dialog uses a fully exposed, full-size nib, whereas the Vanishing Point's nib is semi-hooded when it's extended, and it's a much smaller nib compared to the Dialog 3. Disassembling the Lamy Dialog 3, we're going to give the back barrel a counterclockwise turn. And at this point, the back barrel is empty. We then can see our nib unit, which is part of the front end. And it's nice to see that there is an ink window that goes alongside the converter. Unfortunately, mine does not line up well with these notches that are on the front barrel, so that's a little bit of a miss in the manufacturing process. We'll go ahead and give this a twist. It's also nice that they included a knurled portion of this nib unit to help with twisting it. And I'll set that down. There isn't really an easy way to disassemble this portion further, and I really advise against it as there are many different cam and gears in here. If you purchase this new, you might have received a nut to help open and close the dome-shaped cap. I found that I am able to also use it with just a little rod, giving that a clockwise twist allows me to open it up and run water through this unit. Unfortunately, I bought this secondhand, so I do not have that piece that came with the original packaging. And then for the nib unit itself, we can pull the converter right out. And then we have the nib unit with the feed and the nib. The nib can be pulled right off. And I haven't found an easy way to remove this plastic feed, so for cleaning and maintenance, I would recommend just soaking this in water. And at this point, you have the pen fully disassembled. To reassemble, I'm going to start with the nib and feed. The nib has 2 ears to help with aligning it on this feed. And just push that in place. And then we'll insert our converter and screw that entire unit into the front barrel. And then we'll screw on our back barrel. And at this point, we should be able to extend and retract the nib. Perfect. And now we're ready to ink up. Inking up the Lamy Dialog 3, today I selected Waterman Serenity Blue, which is a nice deep blue that's well behaving in most pens. I'm going to turn the bottle on one of the facets since the level is getting low. We'll remove the back barrel. And then unscrew the nib unit from the front. Make sure your piston is extended all the way down, which this one already is. Submerge the nib into ink and rotate the piston to draw it up. I'm going to expel the ink one more time and drop the piston one more time just to make sure we get a nice full fill. That looks very full. I'll go ahead and wipe off the nib. Screw it back into the front barrel, followed by the back barrel. Cap up our bottle, and we're ready to write. Okay, writing with the Lamy Dialog 3, give the back barrel a twist, and the nib comes out. And our nib is a 14 karat gold extra fine. And Lamy gold nibs have a big reputation for being smooth and bouncy. And I must say, its reputation upholds itself. This is the first gold nib that I've written from Lamy, with the exception of the Lamy 2000, and it is a real joy to write with. It's smooth, it's wet, and it has really nice bounce. Our ink is Waterman Serenity Blue. For flex, I'll turn the page. Even though this nib has good bounce and spring, it doesn't have very much flex. You can push out a little bit of line variation, but mostly you're just pushing out more ink. For reverse writing, it is scratchy, but the feed kept up pretty well. So in a pinch, you could reverse write to get a thinner line, but honestly, I wouldn't with this nib. I think that it just kind of sacrifices the writing experience. So what do I think of the Lamy Dialog 3? I think it is a absolutely beautiful pen to look at. The design is extremely well balanced. Again, it's kind of pill-shaped, which is very unusual for a fountain pen. And I appreciate the fact that they carried on that pill shape to other design aspects of this pen, like the pinstriping going around in a big circle, and also the shape of the clip. The nib, as I mentioned, is extremely well tuned, a fun, wet nib to write with good bounce, and you can see it has pretty nice character. In terms of the writing experience of this pen, unfortunately, there are some areas to improve. First of all, the twist mechanism. It's hard to show it on camera, but it actually has a few different stages as you twist it. The first stage has a lot of resistance, and what that does is it breaks the seal on the cap. And then you have a pretty smooth and easy turn to get the nib out, followed by another bit of resistance to lock it in place. Now that last bit of resistance, I don't mind that. I actually prefer having that bit of resistance as it gives you confidence that you have extended the nib fully. But I find as I retract it back down, I often will stop right here, where that first stage of resistance happens. And at this stage, the dome hasn't fully sealed off. I can't tell you how many times I've come back after writing with this pen to find that I've left it in this position and the nib is completely dry. So I find that pretty disappointing and somewhat annoying. The other thing is, if I'm writing with this, especially for quick notes, I'll likely jot something down and then quickly close it. And when I do that quick close, I find that I, more often than not, will overextend this twist and instead of closing the pen, start disassembling it. I wish what Lamy would have done is introduce a spring into this twisting mechanism, so all you would need to do is give it a little flick to extend the nib and flick to retract it back. Something somewhat similar to the Pilot Vanishing Point, LS. The other issue that I have with this pen is the ergonomics of it. Yes, it is a stunning pen to look at and extremely unique, but unfortunately in the hand it's not very comfortable. Even though they did spend the time to make sure that the clip retracted in this exposed position. That is a nice attention to detail, but unfortunately it doesn't change the fact that the cylindrical shape of this pen is just not very ergonomic. And for those reasons, I unfortunately have to say the Pilot Vanishing Point is still my personal gold standard when it comes to retractable fountain pens. Yes, it's not quite as good looking as the Lamy Dialog 3, but it is far more ergonomic in the hand, and the simple click action to extend or retract the nib is fast. You can do it one-handed without any issue, and you don't have any concern if you've fully extended or retracted the nib. The only other thing that I don't love about this pen is, unfortunately, the build quality. It's mostly made out of brass, so it does have nice heft, and it gives you confidence that it will be quite durable. However, when we look at the way that it was assembled, it's kind of disappointing to see the ink window not line up with those notches. It wouldn't have been that difficult to line them up properly like this in the assembly process. All you would have needed to do is pay closer attention to the threading. But with all that being said, It is a beautiful looking fountain pen, quite stunning to look at and hold in the hand, though not the most comfortable in the world. The twisting mechanism is fun to fiddle with, and it does seem when you use it properly that it seals off the nib quite nicely. And also that nib, again, is an absolute pleasure to write with. So with all that being said, just leaves me to say, thank you for watching.